Hi everyone, it's Lexi and welcome back to another episode of The 20 Effect. I am so happy that you're here because today I'm celebrating 1 year of the 20 Effect podcast. I seriously can't believe that it's already been a year. I feel like there's been so many highs and lows throughout this year, and I've just learned so much, not just about podcasting, but about life too. And really just wanted to spend this episode to talk about everything that I've learned this past year, all the wisdom that I've gained, and also just thank you guys for constantly supporting this. I wouldn't be here without it. I wouldn't have gotten to a year without it. So just thank you guys for everything that you've given me over this past year, and to this podcast, and just for listening and supporting. So really, really grateful for that. I started this podcast when I was 25, and I felt like just coaching college athletes and still coaching college athletes, I just had a front row seat to a lot of young adults who are in their 20s and kind of going through their early 20s of graduating and stepping into like adulthood post-grad. And then obviously being in my mid to late 20s. I hate saying that. I turned 26 a week ago. Living it in the same time, just like a couple years later, and experiencing adulthood still in their 20s, but just like more so in their later 20s. And I think it's really cool to get to kind of like coach young adults in their 20s and be surrounded by those humans, but then also be living in my 20s at the same time. And I think the things that I want to touch on today, the more that I've talked to people about them, the more that I've realized like we're all going through these like really hard and vulnerable things, but we're not really talking about them. If 25 taught me anything, it's that your 20s, and not even just your 20s, but just like life in general, it's not about having all the answers. It's about learning to live with the questions. I think learning to live in the uncertainty, in the unknown, and being okay with that, kind of being comfortable, like finding comfort within the uncomfortable. And so kind of just wanted to take this episode to touch about the 5 like big things, and I'll dive into each one, but just the 5 big things that I've learned over this past year. I've had such an incredible year. This has been one of the greatest years of my life, but also one of the hardest. And I think what it's taught me, and this is kind of going into my first point, is that life is really a lot about, and adulthood especially, is really just like living between mountaintops and valleys. And I feel like we're constantly just going like this. I remember when I was wrapping up my time in Arizona, it was just a really, really sweet time for me. I felt like I was on this really high mountaintop. And I remember I was telling my friend, I was like, I feel like I'm just like on this high, like just living in this really, really sweet moment of life. But then I was like, but I'm kind of scared because I feel like I know a valley is coming and like a really big life lesson is coming. And sure enough, like I moved across the country to Texas and dealt with and am dealing with just a lot of change. Making friends in your 20s is really hard. And just feeling like I'm in a valley, like still having a lot of blessings in my life and a lot of really sweet moments, but like going through a really hard transition period. And I think that's the biggest thing. I like to joke about like a quarter life crisis. I know we joke a lot of times about like a midlife crisis, but I really think when you're kind of in your mid 20s, you hit almost like a quarter life crisis of one, like your brain is now fully developed. But 2, it's like you're just going through this really big transition period of like, I am fully like financially on my own right now. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. I just got kicked off my parents' health insurance. That's another really big responsibility. And we're kind of just like taking on these things. But then we're also, I feel like it's such a trying time because we're really just like, and I've dealt with this a lot of just questioning and second guessing myself I felt like when I was in my early 20s, I felt like I knew it all. Like for sure when I was 21, I was just like on this high, thought I knew everything about the world, thought I had it all together, even into like my senior year and into 22. And then you graduate college and you're kind of like, oh, actually, I'm in the real world and I don't know everything. But I think the biggest thing that I've kind of had to cling on to throughout this is that like growth often comes with uncertainty. And I've dealt with just a lot of anxiety over this past like couple months too, of starting a new job, moving across the country, like again, trying to find my place here, trying to find things to like cling on to when I feel like I'm drowning. And just, I think the biggest thing that I just have to remind myself of is like, I'm experiencing these things because I'm growing and because I'm going to like become a better version of myself. And I think that's the biggest thing I've kind of learned is like the growth that happens. I feel like growth doesn't happen when we're on those mountaintops. Growth happens when we're in those valleys and when we're struggling and when we're like having to like climb up the hill again to experience that mountaintop. But I think so too. Something that I've really tried to do is like celebrate the blessings that the valleys still bring, because blessings like come into our lives every single day. And I think it makes those valleys easier when we focus on like gratitude, and are thankful for just like the continuous blessings in our lives. I think that kind of brings me into my second point that I wanted to talk about is that a big moment of change in our lives really forces us to take a hard look in the mirror. I think this kind of goes along with like questioning and second guessing ourselves and like the quarter life crisis of when we have to like take a hard look in the mirror at ourselves and really self-reflect. That's when we kind of get to decide like, okay, what is true about me and what stays the same, and what do I maybe need to like release and let go of because that is like no longer serving me. And I think for me too, when I lived in Arizona, I had gotten just like a really good routine down. I felt like I was pretty consistent in that area. And then moving where my work schedule is completely different from what I've ever dealt with before. Just like expectations are different, my lifestyle's different, my living situation is different. I have now had to create almost like new habits and new routines, and just that in itself can be really hard and a really big adjustment. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is like it's okay to let go of the things that like you used to do daily, that used to be part of your routine, that used to be things that you love to do. It's funny because I have a podcast and I hope that people listen to this podcast. But for me personally, listening to podcasts has not been something that has been serving me in my time here. It's not something that I've been enjoying, not really sure why, but it's just something that I'm like, but I have to listen to podcasts. Like I have to gain knowledge and I have to do this. And it's like, actually, I'm an adult. I can make that decision for myself. I don't have to do that. I've never been more into music than I have before. And that's been really fun because I've discovered new genres that I like of music, and new artists that I enjoy. And I know for some people, it's relationships that no longer are serving you. It's a job that's no longer serving you. It's even friendships that are no longer serving you. Hobbies are a big one, activities, like groups that you're a part of. Whatever that is, like if it is no longer serving you at this, like in your life, even if it was something that you were doing for a long time, if it's a commitment you made, I encourage you to like fulfill that commitment. But if it's something that you're like, this just isn't really fulfilling for me, this isn't something that's filling my cup, this isn't something that I feel like I like need to be doing or have to be doing, then like get rid of it. Like, why are we doing stuff that we don't enjoy? So that has just kind of been something for me. And I think the biggest thing I've learned with that in creating new habits, creating new schedules is like consistency, showing up even when I don't want to, showing up even when I'm like exhausted, and just focusing on like getting 1% better every single day. And then kind of going off that, like being okay with failure, being okay with when things don't go right. I'm reading a leadership book right now with my team, and we're really talking about just like confidence comes from failure. Confidence comes from what I talked about earlier is like those valleys that we're in. We learn so much about ourselves when we're in those valleys. And just like I talked about this earlier, but like being uncomfortable and like putting ourselves in situations where like we are kind of uncomfortable. I know I'm going to start doing that, like living in a new city and trying to make friends is like trying to put myself out there and being okay with getting rejected. being okay with getting told no, being okay with canceled plans. I was actually talking to a guy in his like young 20s on a flight that I was on, and he was moving to a new city, and I was kind of just trying to encourage him like, this is what I've learned, this is the advice that I would give to you. And pretty much we were kind of joking like rejection therapy of being okay with putting yourself out there and getting told no, being okay with putting yourself out there and getting turned down, and putting yourself in those situations because it's going to make you uncomfortable. And then I promise you, like, it's not always going to be a no. You're going to get a yes. You're going to make friends. You're going to be okay. But also being okay in the unknown, this is really scary, but I'm going to do it anyway. I felt like I found just like a really great group of people that I work with, because I put myself in a situation where I was like, well, I don't really know anyone at this thing that I'm going to, but I'm going to go anyway and just hope that it works out. And worst case, like I can just leave. And it ended up being such a fun night. And I ended up creating friendships, and relationships with those people. And I'm so grateful that I just like put myself out there and kind of like jumped and was like, well, it could go really bad. It could go really great. And just trusting that it's going to go well. And if it doesn't go well, then you just learn your lesson and you move on. But I think going off that, like, especially when it comes to friendships and people, is letting go of unrealistic expectations. This not only goes for people, but just like life in general. I think a lot of the time as humans, like, we get really disappointed with other humans when things don't go according to our plan. And in reality, it's unfair to hold other people to like the expectations that you have. And that's a really hard reality to come to terms with, and a really hard reality to live with, because when you show up for other people, you kind of expect the same, but that's not always going to be the case. And to continue, like, we are called to like love people well and like continue to like love people even when they hurt us, even when they disappoint us. And I think that's the biggest thing I've had to learn, is to just continue to love people well, even when like they don't show up, when they don't meet the expectations that I set for them, because truthfully, like, that's not fair. But then also going off that, like, not just with people, but setting unfair expectations for our life is also only going to lead us to disappointment. I think there's a lot of things when I was younger, I thought like I would have this by now, I would be married by now, I would whatever by now. And I think that doesn't give us any room to experience and kind of like romanticize the life that we do have, because we're always going to be wondering what if about the life that we thought that we might have. And so kind of getting rid of those unrealistic expectations of a life that we thought we would have by now, being okay with the life that you do have, being grateful for the life that you do have. But then kind of going off that, like, I also want to encourage you that it's okay to grieve the life that you thought that you would maybe have by now. I know I used to always joke with my mom growing up that she talked about how she like got married in her late 20s and didn't have kids till her 30s. And I was like, well, I'm going to be married by the time I'm 25 and I'm going to have my first kid by the time I'm 27. And like, God can provide, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Never say never, but it's like, that is something that I've kind of had to come to terms with, of like, okay, me when I was in high school or in middle school or whenever that was, like, grieving that part of my life, that like those things haven't happened yet. Doesn't mean that they won't happen. They just haven't happened like when I thought they would. And so it's okay to like grieve those things, but then also I want you to kind of flip it around and turn it into like, what about these amazing blessings that like life has given us? Because it probably has worked out way better than like I thought it would have, if it would have worked out like on my own terms and my own plan. And I think just going off that, like having gratitude for the life that you do have, but also I am someone, I know there's like kind of like three types of people. There's people that like live in the past. There's people that are like good at being present. And then there's people that like constantly think about the future. I am someone who, ever since I was a little kid, has always daydreamed about the future. I love thinking about the future. I love planning my future in my head. Sometimes it works out the way I dream it up. Sometimes it doesn't. And I think something that I really want to work on is like being more present in the moment, and enjoying like my day to day, enjoying what I do have and what's right in front of me, rather than worrying or thinking or daydreaming about what could happen. So just would encourage you, be more present, be more grateful for like today and the now. And kind of going off that, my final point is you are doing so much better than you think you are. I think going back to like the mountaintops and the valleys, I think because of social media, we are only seeing people's mountaintops. We're only seeing the happy things that happen in people's lives of they're getting engaged, they're getting married, they're having babies, they graduated from law school, they graduated from grad school, they're moving to a new city, they're backpacking around Europe. Like, we are only seeing glimpses into people's lives. A lot of people on social media are not sharing the valleys that they're in. Sometimes they do. But a lot of the time we're only seeing people's mountaintops. And so it's really hard when we're in a valley to like watch every single person on social media be on a mountaintop. And I want you to know that like that's something that's normal. I really want you to give yourself grace in those moments of you're doing so much better than you think you are. And when you see people experience their mountaintops on social media, like truly like be happy for them, because you want to be celebrated when you reach your mountaintop, and you want to be loved just the same that you loved them. But like also give yourself grace that like it's okay to be in your valley and be sad, but really focus on like celebrating others and their mountaintops and their achievements. And also just like what I've learned is like building a life takes time. And I think a lot of times in our 20s, we feel like we have to have it all together. We feel like we have to have it all figured out. We feel like we have to, like, those are just pressures from society that like actually aren't real. Like, I know people in their 50s that still don't have it together and still don't like know what they want to do with their life. And I think that that's okay. I honestly think that's life, is like half the time we're making it up as we go. We're all humans and we're all living life for the first time, and we're all just figuring it out. And so giving grace to yourself, but also giving grace to other people. I feel like I talk about that a lot, but it's just something that I've learned a lot in this past year, is that we all deserve not a little, but a lot of grace. And so those are kind of the things that I have learned over this past year. Those are things that I'm still working on, but I think there are a lot of things that just talking with friends and talking with people who are in like similar seasons of life as me, it's common themes and common things that we're all kind of dealing with and we're all kind of going through. And so I would just encourage you to like lean on other people, lean on people that are going through similar things. I feel like the more that we talk about these things, the more that they like can't hold power over us. Especially just like, I know for me, a lot of people have gotten the feedback that like, Lexi, it seems like you just have it all together. And while that may seem true from an outsider's perspective, like I'm living life for the first time just like you are, and I don't have it all figured out. I don't have it all together. And like majority of the time I am like struggling and working my butt off to like have it all together. But I think in life we're never going to have it all together. I think that's just like something we're going to keep like chucking away on, that we're never actually going to reach. And I think something that I've been really wanting to work on is like being more vulnerable, being more honest about like the struggles that I'm going through. I think a lot of the time as humans, like we don't want to be a burden on other people. But I think the more that we can lean on people and rely on people, the more just like relatable we are. And I feel like the more vulnerable we are with people, the better connected we can be. And I think a lot of the time we relate to each other a lot more than we think we do. And I think that comes with just like being okay with not having it together and being okay with not having all the answers. Like I said in the beginning, like life is really just about learning how to live with the questions. So would just encourage you with that today, would just encourage you to like really just lean on the people around you, lean on the people that like you love and that love you. And then also just like give yourself grace. You're doing life for the first time, and just know that you're doing so much better than you think you are. And I'm so proud of you. I hope that you were able to take something from this episode. But that is kind of all the things that I feel like I've just really learned over this past year. I seriously could not have gotten through this past year without your support, without the people that listen and watch, and the people that send me kind words that this podcast has helped them or they've learned something from it. Like that's always going to be the goal. That's always going to be my mission with this. It's always going to be the purpose behind this. But I'm so excited for this next year. I'm excited for the people that I want to bring on. I'm excited for the topics that I want to talk about. I hope that I'll keep being vulnerable and honest and real, and just talk about the things that we're all dealing with. But I just want to thank you for watching or listening to this episode. For more content, make sure to check out the 20 Effect podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I just want you to remember that no matter what you're going through, we're in this together. Bye, y'all.